All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the CRC Roundtable, our monthly virtual seminar series. I'm going to shorten this introduction a little bit, but just to remind you that these webinars are designed for contribution, not consumption. And as a reflection of that intent, we're going to try to give you enough time to have a discussion at the end. We'll try for as 20 to 30 minutes. This is all about us, giving us a place to ask the clumsy questions and to practice the bravery and humility necessary for building the future we want. I'm going to start, as we always do, by understanding why this topic at this time and by this speaker. I would say that this is a unique roundtable. In December, we traditionally gift our community in a special way with a message that's perhaps not so much technical as soulful. And so, in a world that often seems adrift, to use a lot of navigation analogies, indigenous cultures especially remind us of the importance of our roots and the strength found in cultivating connections. And they teach us that true direction is not gained just through solitary paths, but by weaving together our shared experiences and the wisdom of those around us. And so I think this season offers us a unique opportunity to reflect on that and anchor ourselves to those values and reinforcing the ties that bind us to our communities and to each other. And so it's absolutely perfect to have Nainoa Thompson of the Polynesian Voyaging Society with us, who has really dedicated his soul to a global effort to connect communities in common cause. Nainoa has received a lot of recognition, but the true measure of the man for me is his grace, commitment, and vision. And so I'm going to turn it over to him. I'm hoping that so much like the Polynesian navigators he represents, who chart their course by the stars, I'm hopeful that we can find a way by staying true to the guiding principles of community respect and interconnectedness that really forms so much of his message. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nainoa Thompson. Nainoa, we can't hear you.
Okay.
There.
Hello, Mike Kako. My name is Nainoa Thompson, and I'm from the Hawaiian Islands. And honored to be here for a number of reasons. One is to participate in this, but I do want to say that I have a long-standing relationship with the Virginia Institute of Marine Science and William and Mary, and we work together to connect communities around the world. And so this is just another step towards building on that commitment. I have a lot of slides that I know I need to get through quickly because the heart of today, in my understanding, is where we have a conversation for the second half. So with moving forward, I'm going to go through them really quickly, but I do think it's important for you to have an eye blink into the history of our voyaging family and and especially because I can't do these presentations without bringing my teachers into the room and the vital importance of education. So maybe we'll just get started. And with the next slide. Yeah, Hawaii is in the middle of the Pacific, as you know. First voyaging canoe that might have arrived someplace in the south happened between 1,000 and 2,000 years ago. This would be the longest deep sea road, ancestral road. It's from islands in the south around the Tahiti area. First canoe that came 2,400 miles away. And so, but let's say 2,000 years ago, the first people put a footprint on the Hawaiian Islands and built their sustainable societies by doing one thing: protect water. And extraordinary systems. It's called ahupua'a. We will be talking about that because that's exactly what you do from Virginia to New York in the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Except your scale is so much more large, it's more complex. And we've been inspired by the work that we've seen with our time with you. 2,000 years ago, canoe arrived. 200 years ago, a different voyages came from other parts of the world, and it's the same story. It's a really hard story about what has happened to indigenous people across the planet. One of the things is we forgot. Forgot our language, we forgot our genealogy, we forgot enough to know that we don't even know the name of the canoe that came. We don't know the captain or the navigator because we forgot. And in doing so, we forget a core part of who we are, our identity. And so, next slide. Yeah, so founders, bring them in the room. These are the pioneers, the mentors, the dreamers. Dr. Ben Finney, in early 50s, would choose to go into anthropology and to the doctorate program in San Diego. And then 1958, he would receive his doctorate. He'd come to Hawaii to do postdoctorate work. And a lady professor in the University of Hawaii would confront him, and with two books. Her name was Catherine Luomala, and you could count all the women professors in the system on one hand back then. Gave him the two books and said, these books are wrong, change them. So it really was an issue of justice in Ben's mind. The two books were, one was Kon-Tiki by Thor Heyerdahl, suggesting that the population of the Pacific was from the Americas, and on different forms of rafts, and did a voyage called Kon-Tiki, 107 days at sea, drifted, crashed on an island called Raroia, and wrote a book and made a film about what's probably not correct. And so he studied, and he had the two books, and he had his dream of doing something about the truth of Pacific Islanders. Next slide. And this is Herb Kawainui Kane, Hawaiian, born in Waipio Valley on the Big Island. He, in the late 50s, at the very same time, was actually moved to Chicago because he was a painter and a sculptor. He's arguably the greatest modern day artist in Hawaii today. And at the same time, 1958, he was in Chicago, but it would take 10 years until 1968 that a single phone call made by Ben Finney to Herb Kane, and they talked over the phone and talked about Herb's whole push was to restore culture, tradition, language, and their belief was to construct the most important artifact of Pacific people, that connect Pacific people in the biggest nation on earth, Oceania. And next slide. And this is the day before the launching of the first canoe in 600 years. It would be named Hōkūleʻa. Hōkūleʻa. Hōkū means star. Le'a is gladness. And this is March 7th, the day before it should be launched at the sacred beach of Kualoa. They went ahead and launched one canoe, and that canoe would change everything. It's about launching. We all need to launch things that we believe. Next slide. And then the other miracle would be locating this man, considered at the time master navigator. There were 6 that were considered in his school. He's from Micronesia, not Polynesia, because all the navigators are gone. But he was the youngest of all the masters. His name is Piailug. People normally refer to him as Mao. Mao means to be fierce. He's a intense navigator from Micronesia, master. Next slide. This is his island. Talking to the chiefs there, they think that the navigation school is about 4,000 years old, and they train probably 1,000 navigators. The island is called Satawal in the Western Carolines in Micronesia. Next slide. And then Mao would be challenged, and he would come to Hawaii and he'd prepare for the voyage next, which would be this blue line represents our traditional ancestral road. It's called Keala Ikahiki, the pathway to and from Tahiti. it's connecting from Hawaii to the French Polynesia by voyaging canoe and 2,400 miles of open ocean. It's quite, and then navigating this with no instruments. It's just nature, stars, heavens, clouds, wind, wave. Next. And this is an actual photograph of Hōkūleʻa leaving Honolulu Bay, Maui in May 1st of 1976, 48 years ago, 17 on board, heavily laden, and going down the road. And next slide. And this is arrival. I was there. Somehow I got selected to take Hōkūleʻa from Tahiti back to Hawaii. I flew in on a jet, and it took them 31 days of hard sailing to get here. 17,000 Tahitians were there. And when I arrived there, I had to climb the monkey pot tree so I could actually see the canoe. Tahitians are big, I'm small. But it was, this day changed everything. We are connecting not just to communities, but to ancestral family. Here they maintain their language well. I mean, there were so many children jumped on Hōkūleʻa, we had to politely in English ask them to get off because they were kind of sinking the stern. But this is their canoe. It's not ours. And because they have their orators that still remember the stories of great navigators, great captains, great canoes, but they don't have one. And so when Hōkūleʻa arrived, it shifted everything. They wrote 275 songs for this canoe just on its arrival. Next slide. And then Mao, make a long story short, he was the key. One, he did two miracles. One, he found Tahiti. Imagine that you're standing on Waikiki Beach looking south towards the direction of Tahiti. If you drew a line in your imagination to the east side of Tahiti and one to the west, it's less than half a degree. And try and navigate it only with nature. He was probably the only person that could do those two things. One, find Tahiti, and then come back for 29 years and train us to find it ourselves. Next slide. Yeah, and this canoe was loaned to us. We're responsible for us. It was trusted to us by our pioneers and our teachers, and we've trained for a long time. And I will say that we're still in kindergarten. There's so much we don't know about how great the original voyagers truly were. Next slide. And then we make a long story short. We in the last Hōkūleʻa will be 50 years old in 2.5 months, and half a century, and we've done a lot. We've sailed a lot, probably about 280,000 nautical miles. This is our country, Hawaii in the north, Aotearoa southwest, and Rapa Nui. Most of our voyages have been 15 different voyages that we've taken, and most of them in the Pacific. And then one of them was outside of the Pacific. It was a voyage around the world in 2014 and 17. Next slide. Yeah. The big question for us is making sure we remember the first 50 years, remember what we learned from our extraordinary 1,000 set of teachers, but the real responsibility is the next 50 years. What are we going to do? And what we're thinking about is just sailing to one island. And by the way, you'll never get there. You just keep sailing, and that island is the only one we have, and it's called the Earth. And so we are committed to looking at trying to be a part of this extraordinary movement of love and care for this single island. Again, to me, in my opinion, it's the only one we have. And so our next 50 years is trying to sail towards the health and well-being and the respect of this island, and ensuring that the future of our children is going to be healthy, it's going to be safe. And so we just joined the movement of great people like yourselves in the audience are doing exactly the same thing. You're launching your future into protection of the one single island we have. Honored to be here. Next slide. Yeah, best friend. I'm going to go real fast. Name is Lieutenant Colonel Lacey Beach. He's Kekeoka He's born in our land. He's Ku'aina. He stands on it. And he is very special to me, best friend and mentor and teacher. He flew for the Air Force, and then he joined NASA, and it was a pilot and a mission specialist for in the shuttle program. Next slide. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, he if you look at this slide, he said, Nainoa, I'm going to send you a present from space, and it's going to be a solution to finding how we can live sustainably, finding how we can live peacefully on the earth. And so this is a cockpit window of Columbia. And if you look in that window on the lower part of it, you see the island of Hawaii, a little red kind of smudge on by the clouds at 12,500 foot elevation, place called Keanakakoi. It's the caves of where they get the stone that was super cooled and dense a long time ago, about 35,000 years, by a glacier on top of the great mountain Mauna Kea and an eruption. And this stone was that, well, he smuggled on Columbia a heavy, sharp object in zero gravity, but he said he floated it in the window and said, "This is what we need to do. We need to we need to look at the lessons and the greatness of ancestral people. Look back 500 years. How did they figure out to crack the code to live in a healthy, sustainable way on the only island?" And the other is to match that with science and technology. The data we need to be able to make good navigational decisions about the voyage for the future of the earth. And so he floated it in the window, and he took this photograph, and then he sent it to me. This is going to be the pathway. Next slide. So we would go to Mauna Loa once a year, and we would go up the northern flank of this mountain on top of the lava illegally with some rental car from Hilo. And we would camp at 6,000 foot elevation, actually 7,000. And we would dream, and in the black lava absorbing all light, bring stars close. And we would talk about many things, but he kept talking about the island. Next slide. This one, moonrise, this is earthrise. And he kept talking about the island, about how beautiful it is, how complex it is, how rich we are in biodiversity today, a great, great time in human history. But then he would also go back to these long conversations about, we're messing with this island, we're changing it. He would talk about, we're changing the island, it's going to change us, and we don't know what to do. This is back in 1990, early 1990s. And it was the top thing on his mind, which really, his thinking drove the worldwide voyage. Next slide. Yeah, he said, you can't protect what you don't understand, and you won't if you don't care. And he said, you can't do it by yourself. It has to be connected globally to people like you. And so he planted the seed of, you need to sail Hōkūleʻa around the world. Next slide. Long story, and it's a sad story for me. He had lymphomelanoma, and he was sick in his last 2 years. And it was a late September when I'd get a phone call from his wife, and Alice, saying, "You got to come to Houston tonight." And so I flew there, and I met him at his house. There were 100 people in his house. It's very sad. And he was hiding in the bedroom on a wheelchair, and he's dying. And so when I went in there, we had a long conversation, just me and him, and he just said, "You promised me, Nainoa, 3 things. That one is, listen to the new language. The new language, you need to listen to this language and pay attention, it was sustainability, it was climate, it was change, it was hypoxia, it was all these issues he was saying that we need to figure out. And then he said, but you need to sail this canoe around the world. It needs to touch the earth, and the earth needs to touch this canoe. It's about connecting communities. And it was his vision, not mine. And then he said, build a school for the earth, by the earth, in those connections. Build a network of connections and link education. He felt educating young people was mandatory for the success of us caring for the earth. We would lose him. Yeah, it was about 6 days later from that conversation that he passed away. And so next slide. And we would debate this every year at our annual meeting of the Voyagers leadership in Hawaii for 13 years. And we would talk about the inspiration of the island and the vital need to protect it. And then we would talk about things like the hurricane and the pirate and the mosquito and disease in certain countries, violence in certain countries, the rogue wave of South Africa. The menu of risk was long. And for 12 years, we voted every time about whether we're going to go around the world. And we voted no, because there was always too much risk. But the 13th year, on April 1st, 2008, we had a meeting, and we knew, because Lacey was correct, pay attention to the language and of the earth, and the language was now yelling at us that we're on the wrong sail plan. In terms of sustainability, humanity's failing. And so it wasn't a matter of whether we should go. The question that was on the table of the vote was, what's more dangerous? The pirate or the hurricane or the rogue wave or the mosquito or violence, or staying knowledgeable and stay tied to the dock and don't go? We voted 4 times, had to be unanimous. We had to be united as one family in order to be able to reach the future we deserve. Next slide. So we, for 6 years, redid our canoes. This is Hōkūleʻa under a dried out. Think about this photograph. We have a lot of young people. We don't recruit. We don't recruit at all. We just wait for and we test ourselves. If young people don't come, it's the wrong sail plan. This is all about them, not us. And so this photograph shows you they started to come because there was an idea. There was an idea and the possibility for them to be a part of something special, bigger than themselves, a voyage around the world. We trained for 6 years. Next slide. Trained hard, pushed them. Everything was hard about it. 6 years we trained to get ready. Next slide. We did a lot of research on the earth, and that's how we started to learn about it. Its systems. Need to understand how the earth's systems work, otherwise you can't protect it. And this is the sail plan. Next slide. And then we left, basically, generally headed west until we came home. 37 months later, it was 39,000 miles, many countries. Next slide. And we went to many countries. This is one, and many places. This is the Secretary General of the United Nations who met us in Samoa, and he gave us this bottle. And in the bottle was a personal note that he wrote to ask, because he understood how importantly vital it is to protect water. Water, it's all about the water. And you folks know that I can't lecture you. You should be lecturing me. And yeah. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon put the letter in there and said, go to the countries and see if they'll sign on to the idea of us unifying on the importance of protecting the world's oceans. Next slide. And then I'm going to go fast forward. 2016, we arrived in your country, in the Chesapeake Bay, on the southern side in Virginia. We went to Tangier and learned the stories of the impact of things like water getting higher and higher. And next slide. And then we traveled all the way up to Washington, D.C., up the Potomac. We went through Europe, and I'm not so sure exactly where we went, but I know where we went, but I didn't understand how it all tied into the Chesapeake Bay watershed. And all I know is that in Hawaii, our land divisions are based on a system called ahupua'a. And that is, if you can imagine, you trace the raindrop from the very top of the mountains, and you trace it as it comes down the valleys into our streams, and you trace it as it goes into the fish ponds where Native Hawaiians would produce food, but also clean the water before it goes on the coral reefs. And it was, the watershed was so, we say kapu, meaning sacred, that people could not go into it. The guess is that Native people only lived on 17% of the land in Hawaii, and the rest was land of the gods. It was a land of nature, and it needed to be left alone to protect fresh water. And next slide. And then we went to New York to keep our promise. And next slide. And this is, we gave the bottle back. 18 countries signed on, and talking about making connections, and a bottle and a note from a great leader. We gave the bottle back here at the United Nations. Next slide. And then homecoming. Yeah, it's a long voyage, hard. I got 2 phone calls on the Monday after homecoming. One was from the head of one of our news stations that streamed the arrival for 12 hours. There was the largest gathering of people in Hawaii, but he said that, this has been the largest viewed event in Hawaii's history, not because of the people who came down from Hawaii, but it was the people from around the world, the connections, the linkages. Our belief is that it has to be, these connections need to be tied to family values, things that we will protect, things that are meaningful. And in the end, the journeys have been about love of home, love of family. And the other phone call was from the chief of police, and just said that, it'd be the first event that those distributing illegal drugs wouldn't come to Santa Ana, that there was not a single arrest, there was no act of violence. We know we can come together, but it cannot just be an event. It has to be the way we live our lives. And so, but Hōkūleʻa has a key to convening and having us start to break down the issues of mistrust, because we're strangers. You can't build trust without respect. And so Hōkūleʻa is a tool to link us around the world around common vision and common values, and define our relationships by those values, not by the color of our skin. We don't do that. And next slide. The next voyage. Yeah, this is my country. It's where I come from. There's a traditional navigation class. It's in the Kamehameha schools, and I asked the students to go figure out how far up, what's your altitude from the center of this big body of water, so that you can see the shorelines of Alaska and Antarctica and Chile and China at the same time. How high you need to get? Oh, they go, okay, we'll come back to you, because they're like really smart. They're really smart. I mean, they go 22,500. And I told them, I fly in airplanes and look out the window, I'm at, like 40,000 feet, and all I see is water. They go, no, not feet. It's miles, 1/5 of the distance of the moon, where you can see the borders of this ocean called the Pacific. I'm going to remind ourselves, including me, it's not about dividing the oceans. It's one ocean. It's one system. It's one life system, and it's all connected globally. The oceans connect us. Next slide. So we are now on this voyage that came from the worldwide voyage. The intent of the worldwide voyage from Lacey, go touch the earth and let the earth touch the canoe. Go learn, go and build friendships around the world. And then this voyage is called Moana Nui Akea, our most recent voyage that we're on right now. And Moana Nui Akea is meaning the oceans of the great expanse. And our ancestors only saw one ocean and one people and one island, the earth. And the difference between this and the worldwide voyage is, yes, we are exploring. Yes, we're discovering. Yes, we're connecting. But we have to have a role in which we believe is going to be a contribution to the future of our children, and that is protecting water. This is a blue planet, not a green one, and the water we're looking at is the Pacific, the biggest so-called ocean in the world. There's the Pacific Ocean is bigger than all the rest of the other oceans put together, and all land mass, all dirt on the earth could fit in our country. And so we are on this circumnavigation of the Pacific right now. Next. And I have asked that we play a video, and if we can play this video to talk about the Moana Nui Akea voyage. Started in May of 2023. We started in Alaska, and the idea was to go all the way around the Pacific and reconnect back to Alaska through Russia. Kind of rough right now, but maybe we can hope for a better day, because we were asked by the native people there, if we go to Russia, they're going to build their canoes and come to Russia from Alaska, because it's the same family. And they want to meet their cousins. So what you're going to see is a summary of our voyaging in 2023, from May till the end of the year. And we broke off we were supposed to have gone from Alaska all the way down to San Diego to Central and Mexico, Central and South America. But we came home because the family in Hawaii asked us to, when you had the fire in Lahaina. And they basically, I got a phone call from the people in Lahaina saying, we're in the black of the storm, we can't find a way out. Bring Hōkūleʻa, because it has the light, and it can show us the way out of the storm. And so so we came home to our family, and we've been here for a year, and we're going to our children on a 7-month voyage around the state. Please, could we show the video? Moana Nui Akea, is the ocean of the great expanse. And if you look at the data of damage to the earth and to ecological systems, and then you start to forecast extinction, it's all ramping up. In time, it's actually exponential. And so it's pretty scary. And so where's the solutions? A part of it is going back to who we used to be. And so Moana Nui Akea is a pushback. It's a dangerous thing to do, but what's more dangerous is to not go.
We took Hōkūleʻa off the Alaska Marine Line barge in Juneau, and then we towed her around Douglas Island to the harbor here. And since then, we've been preparing Hōkūleʻa for the beginning of the voyage. We erected the mast and put on the new canvases. Soon we'll be putting up the last spar and the booms and the sails, and making sure things are ready to go before we head up to Yakutat.
Alaska is where we begin kind of the global circumnavigation of the Pacific. You got to anchor it on values that represent everyone. So we're anchoring Alaska on the value of the love of family. And that's because 32 years ago they donated those 2 trees for us to build our second canoe, Hawaii Loa. And that donation turned into intergenerational kind of interchange. What we believe to see is that we're going to come together with this recognition that the ocean doesn't separate us, it connects us. And every place we go to, on the rest of this voyage over 47 months and 42,000 miles. We'll be carrying that value to every place we go.
We're going to define love by giving away.
Namalgik needs it, and it simply means till we meet again.
Earlier this morning, we left Victoria Harbour and headed out into the Salish Sea. And right now, we just passed the Canadian-US border and we're headed into Suquamish next.
We bring this message to you with heavy hearts as we've been following the news of these unprecedented and devastating fires across Maui and Mokuokeawe. Of course, we all have ohana va'a and ohana in those places, but also anyone across our pai'aina who is hurting, we carry you with us today, and we are sending our aloha and our pule. Know that as well, we are on this voyage for the earth, we are also on this voyage for you, and our aloha and our thoughts will be with you always.
The Hōkūleʻa inspires us to know that there is a different way. On behalf of the City and County of San Francisco, welcome. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Instead of us heading out to Mexico and Central America and South America, we're just going to turn west and go 2,400 miles to Hōkūleʻa's home and our home, simply because we need to, and simply because it's the right thing to do. So you have this legacy of this extraordinary canoe that took us to places we could never imagine, and into a world of emotions and connections with people that we could never even imagine. But the biggest question now, what's the next 50 years?
Oh, thank you, Nainoa. That was just wonderful. And I'm going to start off the questions with one from Kirk. So during your voyage along the west coast of North America, what inspired you the most about the communities you encountered?
Wow. You know, we went to 34 communities, and very different places and different people. But in the Native communities, the things that were common, that's what we're looking for. What's common? What brings us together? And they would talk about time, you know, stewardship over different places between 10,000 and 14,000 years. They would talk about this issue about how they lived in balance with the natural environment. They would talk about the last 200 years. And you know the story. It's not nice. It's hard what happened to them. And then the question is, what do you do when there's pain and when there's abuse and when there's hurt? I mean, intense. You go to Alert Bay and the elders would talk about, you know, the residential schools, and they all had them. And the Native people knocked it down, planted grass, and put up an 18-foot high plywood T-shirt with number 218. The number of the children never came home, and horrific stories. And then the elder I would talk to him and just listen to him and said, but if I chose to respond to the 200 years with hate and anger, I would die. It would either be a fast or slow death of suicide. That my whole choice to approach, and I harbor the anger, but I don't give it out to someone that had no responsibility for those years because of the color of their skin. So if anybody comes to my canoe house and they need a place to stay, they sleep here and I feed them. That the only solution to save him and the future is love. And I heard that story all the way down the coast into the United States, and you know, other stories where you have the same history, the same brutality, and we went to a port, and the chief wasn't there because he was at a signing ceremony with the governor, and where they're going to give his island back for the first time in hundreds of years, where And he did this on interview, and he was so calm, and it was just it would pierce you. Where, yeah, our men would go out to fish and hunt, and while we were gone, the orders were don't take guns, just hatchets, and killed all the women and children in one night, and the bay was red with their blood. And then when they came home, they had to leave, and the land was given back to them, and those who were living on the land that weren't native were feeling that they're going to get kicked out because it was a time for choosing revenge or choose love. And I learned so much from them when they said, we chose to go to these people and recognize how much they love this land, this little island, how much they raised their kids here with the value of caring for this island. You don't ever have to leave this land because we are all one family because of our values. So they broke down everything that would divide us, that would drive us into the decision of hate and drive us into violence, and said, no, the only solution is love down the whole 1,800 miles. And so we are the privileged students. It's like going from Virginia to New York in 2016 and being told about this extraordinary place called the Chesapeake Bay watershed, and the infinite complexities and the challenges of coming together is beyond my imagination. 7 states, 1,000 counties, and different communities. Everybody has to, because you will not get unity without trust, and you can't get trust without respect. And looking at the complexities, and from the outside looking in, just an eye blink into your work, it is inspiring. And so a couple of things about that. You are choosing to care for this place with a daunting challenge of bringing everybody together. But it seems to me that no matter how difficult that challenge is, I hear the stories of moving forward. I hear the stories of stepping back because it's hard. I hear the stories of reconnecting and moving again. And so there's a movement in the Chesapeake Bay watershed area that we want to understand, because what you're going to do for the Chesapeake Bay is not for yourself. It's going to be for the world, to know that we can come together, that we can choose the right values, and we can move together. And I'm not going to try to underestimate or minimize how difficult this is. All I'm going to say is that we honor you for the challenge, and the challenge is perpetual. We're only going to one island, and we never get there. And so that was the main thing about all of this, was just to frankly thank you for your hard, difficult, almost impossible work, but you're still working at it. And so we're inspired, and somehow from this 1 hour session should be, maybe we'll look back in history and say, my hope, my dream is that this is not just a presentation. This should be a beginning of having Chesapeake become a teacher in the Moana Nui Akea voyage. Good, positive, solid, very difficult stories, so people around the world can see the possibilities by determining what we choose. What do we choose? And I guess that's a long answer to your question, but that's what I saw. It was that it really placed me where I love to be. I love to be the student and not the teacher.
So Derek, following up on that, Derek has a great question. He says, each time we're together, we discuss ways that our organizations can partner on shared goals. Many groups are represented here today, across this broad group. What can we do to help support your mission?
Oh, man. I think I answered that. And, let me just say, my short time knowing Derek a day, he's, and his wife, Erica, whether they like it or not, they are part of the voyaging family. because even though they're 5,500 miles away from my home, what they are doing in your communities, and just being so impressed by the importance of the Virginia Institute of Marine Science and its role to get data to those who need the data to make decisions. And so, Derek and his wife are really, again, are teachers of ours. We're really, really blessed to know them. The answer is to me, it's not supporting us, it's being with us. It's being part of this much larger family. And I use the word family because it much more characterizes who we are in the voyaging canoe than listing down the organizations that we come from. And even though that's important, it's the way you can help us is for us to move forward as a trusted family members and having respect for each other and moving forward, knowing that your work that you're doing in Virginia, again, is not for you. It's for all of us that have to move together and just being that kind of powerful family member that allows, because I'm learning all the time and being with Derek and with Kirk and others, I'm learning all the time about how to answer that question. But the main thing is one family, stay together, no matter how hard it is.
Sorry. That leads into another question that Paul is asking. And it's about, language about our one home and protecting that has become, unfortunately, divisive in the US. And there's increasing resistance to conversations, much less action that protects clean water or healthy communities. And so can you provide any insight on how you approach and engage those who maybe don't immediately see the detrimental impacts of the current patterns?
It's interesting you use the word language. Sometimes we're not teaching our children the right languages. And to me, I think the long-term solution to some of that is because we're teaching. Our country created the first public schools about 200 years ago. And they were for an elite group of children to lead the country. And then England industrializes the clothing industry, and United States follows to say that no, public schools are going to be the instrument to train the workforce to industrialize our country and be the most powerful economy. Well, we did that, but the language we're forgetting is the language of nature. And what we're training on the ocean is a language of the ocean. It's a language that one of the things is that we have a long road to go, and the future to me is not ours, it's our children, and again, if they're not there, we're on the wrong sail plan. And to me, I think thinking about Derek and thinking about Vims and William and Mary is really trying to shift what the education priorities are for the long term, and so that the things that our children need to know to answer all these questions should be taught in our school systems to get them there to be able to navigate a future. Otherwise, we're training them for the wrong future. And that's one. And I'm just saying that because of the role of an institute like William and Mary that I've met, and all the other universities around the world. And the short term, man, I don't know. I've never felt. I want to remain inspired, but I never felt a country so divided that it is now, in my lifetime. and I don't know how to make the shifts and the changes other than somehow we're going to have to figure out how to be able to respect other people's opinions, but still forge a better relationship for the future. And I don't know how to do that in this country right now. I feel like it's going to have to go through some pretty hard times, but we have to engineer and create a sail plan and navigate that sail plan so that we think differently than we are right now. And my whole focus is really on young people. And that's one of the reasons why I feel privileged to come to your part of the world, because I get to hang out with young people. And I will say though that as you know, maybe I got it wrong, but what you see in the media, what you see that's bombarded on young people about the state of the world, is fractured, it's broken apart, we're going to go to war, all this kind of stuff. But when you hang out with young people and really talk to them, when you really spend time listening to them, they care. They understand. They are educated that we have to make course changes. And for the most part, I see a lot of courage in young people today. And more so do I see in the older, like an old person like me. I see more optimism with them when you spend time with them. And so if I want inspiration, I go to the young ones. And you should see our young ones on these canoes. I mean, makes me feel like really old and really dumb and very inspired. Just in our tiny little world of voyaging, to me, one of the most important things is connecting our young ones with young ones around the world. And so my bet is that we're going to go through some really, really rough times now. But my bet is that if we invest and advance the voice of young people, we're going to make a better world. And that's why you need these universities. That's why you need these schools, is to keep advancing the voice of these young people. And that's what on our side is. We're in succession right now. Get the old goats off the canoe so young people can take the canoe to places we could have never imagined. So I don't know how to do it globally or nationally, but that's what we're doing. What we're doing in the voyaging family. Succession is really based on trusting them. And so my investment to that, Derek's question is doing exactly what you do. Get young people prepared to navigate a better future.
Well, that's a great point to end on. And I would love to have you for another hour, but this hour is coming to a close. So I'm just going to give you the opportunity to, if there's one message you want to leave us with, what might it be?
I just want to sail with you guys. Your relationship's very valued, and I honor and respect your work. I know it's hard. And it may seem impossible, but from outside looking in, we're inspired by what you're doing in your part of the world, and I really want to stay connected as we go around the Pacific Ocean, because what you're doing in the Atlantic matters. And my aloha to you all. Thank you for the time and the privilege to be here. It's important to me. So take good care, all of you, and thanks for your time.
Well, and I think one message I'll leave you with is there's a lot of comments in the chat that say sailing with you would be an honor for anyone. So
it goes.
Thank you, Nainoa. Thank you, everyone.